appreciate that you are all here on time to get started, and I welcome you to Here Comes Kindergarten. We hope that tonight is an informational opportunity for you to learn more about kindergarten and the adventure that your children and you are going to start next fall when they head to school. So just out of curiosity, how many of you are parents or family members of children who are kindergartners, and this is your very first time as a parent of a kindergartner? Ooh, lots of you. Good. That always makes it really fun. This is an exciting time. It's also kind of an anxious time, and I will tell you that more often than not, you are the one who is the most anxious about it. So the more you learn ahead of time, the better it will be for you and your child. So welcome. My name is Val Peters, and I am the Early Childhood Coordinator for the Sioux Falls School District. So I kind of supervise all of the programs that happen for kids from birth all the way up until the time when they walk through those kindergarten doors. The first thing that you guys are going to do here is you have an opportunity to hear from an elementary principal. Ryan DeGraff is our principal here at Terry Redland. He's going to tell you just a little bit about what it's like to be a part of an elementary community. Tricia Nas is our kindergarten teacher for the night. She's going to tell you what it's like in a typical day of kindergarten. So there will be some helpful hints of what you can be ready for and some things that you can start getting into a routine on with your children so they're really ready for that first day.
Like Val said, I'm Ryan DeGraff. This is my first year as principal here at Terry Redland. I was here for 3 years before this as an assistant principal, as an intern. And I must say, it's an honor and a privilege that all you showed up to Terry Redland today. It's always fun to kind of show off our buildings. I will say that this is the quietest this lunchroom has been in a long time. So I feel like I don't have to use my principal voice too much, but great turnout tonight on a very cold night, so thank you so much. It was great to see when Val asked all the first-time parents going into kindergarten. I feel you. 2 years ago, my oldest daughter, she's now in first grade, but my wife and I were in the same boat. Just a lot of questions. I think we were probably more nervous than our daughter was. My middle child, she's going into kindergarten now in the fall, so kind of right back to where you guys are all at too. When we think about kindergarten, we want to know, what does it look like? What does it feel like to be part of a school community? And I will tell you that every school within the Sioux Falls School District may be a little bit different, but in terms of procedures and practices, a lot of those things are similar. But what makes community schools unique are the families and the people within those communities. So I just wanted to share you with that. So what will my child do in kindergarten? That's what you really want to know. Well, kindergarten looks a lot different than maybe we experienced it as parents when we were that age. Things have changed a little bit, so it looks a little bit more different. When we think about students spend time engaged in activities that help them grow, not just academically, but socially and emotionally. When we think about students, we know that kids come in at different levels, whether it's they know their letters, they know their numbers, some don't know them at all, and that's okay. We think about that in terms of social skills too. How do they do when they hear no, accepting no, or following instructions? I know that my 3 daughters at home, that's something we work on all the time. Hopefully they do better at school than they do at home sometimes. We know that kindergarten is a huge social part. That's how they're learning how to get along with each other, whether it's in the classroom during a math activity, whether it's out at recess time in an unstructured play environment, learning how to get along. Another thing that they do is they listen to literature. They listen to stories being read to them. And that's what I encourage you to do both at home as well. The more they can listen to great stories being read to, the better prepared they're going to be here in kindergarten. They develop skills that help them become readers, those early reader strategies, whether they're starting to hear familiar stories. You know, when we think about levels of readers, the first thing they may recognize McDonald's because of that logo, right? They may not be able to read that sign, but they can recognize it. Then as they start moving forward, they start understanding the sounds of those letters, and they start building onto those skills. And that's what we do here in the Sioux Falls School District, is we build off of those skills, that systematic approach. Exploring numbers. It may not be written the right way, but we're exploring numbers and understanding how they work and the base 10 system. And then also learning how to write. From day one, we have kids start to write. Now, we may not be able to understand what they're writing, but that is writing, whether it's symbols, whether it's pictures, and you will be amazed at the progress that your child makes in their writing throughout the year, even from the fall to the winter, and then definitely by the end of the school year. I'm missing anything here. Okay, length of school day. Almost all schools here within the school district start at 7:55. That's that first bell to say, all right, time to start coming in. We usually like to say school starts at 7:55. Tardy starts at 8, but try to get them to those doors by 7:55. Schools end at 2:45, and then the supervision. There's supervision before school, 15 minutes before. So 7:40 is when adults are out there watching. So we try to encourage parents, if at all possible, not to drop them off before that 7:40 time. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but just know that supervision, that official supervision starts at 7:40. We also have people outside after school supervising that playground for pickup until 3 o'clock. Usually at 3 o'clock, if students aren't picked up, then we have them come into the office of their building, and then we ask them, what's your plan? So it's important to have that before school plan and after school plan. And I know with kindergartners, sometimes you say something and 2 seconds later they forget. So continue to practice that plan. What's your plan after school? And a lot of times for those first few weeks, those teachers have them stand on their line that they line up on the playground, so that you know where to find them each and every day. So if they're to go on a daycare bus or a daycare van, those are the things that you kind of talk through beforehand, get them prepped so that they have those positive experiences as they transition from school to after school care. Recess, best part of the day. Usually, it usually is. Most kindergarten classes get 3 recesses every day. Usually get a morning recess, then they get 1 attached to their lunchtime, so they can run off those great meals they have, and then they get an afternoon one. Now, if they have PE or gym on a certain day, that's usually counted as one of their recesses. So on PE days, they usually get 2 outside recesses, and then the other is their gym time. So you may be hearing about that if it's a gym day or not. Lunch and meals. Usually lunchtime is 45 minutes in length. The school district does an amazing job of getting students fed in an efficient amount of time. What we also want, though, during lunchtime, that's a great social time for students. So learning how to be respectful, make friends, that's an important part of the lunchroom. Now, if it gets too loud, then we have to remind them. But it's a great social opportunity for students. Lunch and meals, applications. There are applications available, I believe, on one of the booths about free and reduced lunches, all those different things. Different schools have different processes. But if you're concerned about that, please look for those free and reduced lunches. Accounts and cards. Most students will have a lunch card tied to an account. Most of it is online now. I think it's called, is it My School Bucks? My School Bucks, yep. And so you can just basically keep their accounts up to date with money, and so they don't run out of funds. And now, anytime they run low on funds, they never get turned away from food. I just want you guys to understand that. Yeah.
Will the kid be in charge of the card?
Usually the kids bring the card, so they practice that. Yep. And then as they get older, we're getting them used to middle school, so they'll remember their ID number and they just punch it in. But for kindergartners, they bring those cards, and they just the lunch helper scans them. Specials. We have a lot of different enrichment specials here in the Sioux Falls School District. We have art for kindergarten, that's twice a week, 35 minutes each. Same with music, PE, and then library occurs once a week. So they have one 35-minute library session a week, which is fun for them to be able to practice that checking out a book and understanding caring for books. Things to consider. Typically, the district has a general supply list that you'll find online on their website. So you'll find kindergarten general supplies that you may want to purchase. Just a note of advice, usually each school has a specific one. So if you may want to wait a little bit, because there might be some more things added that's specific to your child's classroom or school. So just something to think about. Sometimes that generic supply list doesn't get updated all the time. If your child will be absent, we encourage you to please call the school. We have a messaging system for every school, so if you have to call at 5 in the morning because someone's sick, that's okay. We will get that. Our job is to make sure that your child is safe, so if we don't hear from you, we will call, and then if we don't hear from you there, then we'll call your emergency contacts, because we just want to make sure your child is safe. If your phone number changes, please let us know if we think about emergencies. I know that when one of my children gets sick, they don't want to be sitting in the nurse's office all day. They want mom or dad. And so if they're sick and throwing up, we want to be able to get them. And also, if there's any more severe emergencies, we want to be able to contact you. So think about that. If your number changes, if you move, try to update the office with those things. And same goes with emergency contacts. If we can't get a hold of you, we want to try to be able to get a hold of someone. Routines. How do we get kindergarten to be successful? What's routines? Whether it's starting a week or two before school starts, getting them into a good bedtime habit. They are going to be so tired that first few weeks of school just because their brain is learning so much. Probably might have a few meltdowns. I know my oldest daughter did. Just because they're working so hard and they're not used to kind of that full day of learning and activity. So get those good routines in place. Breakfast. Almost all schools offer breakfast. Some schools offer breakfast in the classroom. Terry Redland is one of those schools that we actually don't start breakfast before school. We just have students eat breakfast right as they come into the classroom. Most other elementaries, they have a breakfast time from, I believe, 7:30 until school begins. So that's something that you can think about dropping off students to eat breakfast. And then just have everything ready to go. Most kindergarten teachers I know are the most organized teachers in the building. So they have different packets and folders, and so just try to have those things ready to go each and every morning. So then that anxiety isn't there each morning. In terms of communication, as far as offices and principals, our doors are always open, especially those first few weeks of school. If you have questions or concerns, please feel free to stop in the office or call the school if you have questions or concerns or maybe worried a little bit about your little one. Support your child's learning at home. Like Val said, those are some great resources back there. And like she said as well, every student comes in at a different level, and that's okay. That's quite all right. We welcome one and all. Learn about ways you can support the school, whether it's a PTA or a PTO, or volunteer within the schools. We love that community support. Schools can't be the best they can be without that family support. Like Val said, you will register for kindergarten later on. There will be an online option available at that point, but you'll hear more about that. And then that kindergarten roundup, they call it, will be Thursday, April 5th. And like always, as you can see, Terry Redland, we care about attendance. We know that students can't learn if they're not here at school. So just like every other school here in town, attendance matters. We can't make those gains and we can't connect. When we think about schools, it's about relationships, connecting with your children, letting them know that we care about them. So if they can get to school, then that's going to happen and then learning will occur. You and your child are at a very exciting time in his or her life, beginning the educational career. It's kind of a little scary, where new experiences will likely create apprehension, excitement, and growth. But like I said, after the first couple of weeks, they're gonna love it, and you are too. So we have our superstar kindergarten teacher here. She's gonna come in and tell us what it's like in the classroom, in the trenches.
That's quite an introduction. Yeah, hold up now.
Welcome. Let me get this pulled up here.
I'm going to give a little heads up. I've got a little bit of a cough. I'm going to hope I can get through all this without it interfering. We'll start with a cough drop here. Sorry. All right, welcome. My name is Tricia Nas. I have been in this building since we opened it. So, and most of that in kindergarten. So I welcome you here and thank you for coming. It is an exciting time for everyone and a little nervous for some too. So gotta figure out how to do this here. There we go. I'm just gonna get right to it. I am going to probably repeat some of what Ryan said, and so just so you know that ahead. But some of the kindergarten readiness skills that you can help work on a little bit are self-help skills. That is a big piece. With all the kids in the class, your child really does need to be able to do their buttons and their snaps and their zippers. Tying shoes is an awesome bonus if they can tie their shoes. And then another little thing that people don't often think about are opening packages, opening fruit snacks, opening anything like that, because even the silverware that they get with their lunches is a package that they need to open. So if they can know how to go about opening packages, that will be something that they can do for themselves. And not only is it a help as far as the classroom goes and as far as the lunchroom goes, but they feel good about that they can do it themselves. They don't have to wait. So following directions, identifying letters, sounds, those are all good things to work on. Enjoying books. Really enjoying them and finding what they like to read about and what they like to hear about. Something that they can get involved in and retell with you. Maybe it's a book that you've read many times and they love it, love it, love it. Have them read that story with you and have them tell part of that story. Just read it from the pictures in their memory. That's a step in reading. Writing their first name. Really practicing how to write that name and what that name looks like. Tracing it, you write it, have them trace over it with you. Those are things that will help them out as they begin. Just rote counting, counting objects and making sure that they're counting 1, 2, 3 and counting as they move their finger to count. Identifying numbers, understanding positional words, over, under, on top of, beside, or behind. Those are things that we don't often think about, but they make a huge difference in your child being able to understand what their teacher is asking them to do. A lot of times we just assume kids know what behind is and they don't. So those are things that just help in the overall understanding of what they're being asked to do. Social skills are huge, huge. If you can give them any opportunities to really practice sharing in a fun way and practicing or playing with their friends, playing with their brothers, sisters, relatives, sharing, taking turns, just being kind to one another, using a nice voice and nice words, playing in an appropriate way that would be appropriate for the classroom and for the playground. Those are things to kind of pay attention to. How does your child do with that? Is that something that you should talk about? Because those social skills play such a huge part in their overall success and how they feel about school and how much they are prepared for that. If they struggle with any of that, any of your help at home will only benefit them in the end. We'll work on it here, you'll work on it there, we'll work together. Together everyone achieves more, and we'll do that when you work with your teacher. A little bit about the daily routine. Ryan hit on some of this, but I just want to talk about some of our language arts. We got a new language arts curriculum this year. It's wonderful. It includes a lot of social skills building right within the curriculum. So kids will do a lot of talking back and forth and discussing things that go along with the books and with the literature. So that piece of being able to listen to someone when they're talking to you and then respond back, or talk about something in particular that you've asked them to talk about without getting sidetracked. Those are big things. Within our language arts curriculum, there is a shared reading component. There is a making meaning component, which is reading a book and really talking about and learning about those skills that help them comprehend what the book is all about. a lot of visualizing, retelling, wondering. What do you wonder about? What are you thinking? So it's a lot of that talk that's more than just tell me what happened, but more what do you think about that and why do you think that happened? How did that happen? Vocabulary. Vocabulary is a big thing. The more vocabulary they have, the better they're able to understand everything. So we work a lot on vocabulary that comes from the books that we're reading in our language arts curriculum. So they'll really get into some of those words that you wouldn't even really think a lot about. Small group work. There's a time when kids will work at different stations or at different activities, and the teacher will pull groups of kids that are working at a similar point in their reading and writing development, and they'll work on those specific skills that they need to move them forward. So they'll get that small group time. They also have an independent reading time where they will read on their own books that they have gotten from reading with the teacher in the small groups. They'll read those books and other books that are kind of at their level. So some independent reading time just to get to enjoy those and practice those. There's also writing and handwriting. Handwriting is another thing that we work on. They'll have their math time, a calendar time. A lot of teachers will work on counting at that point, special days, what's coming up, all those kinds of things. Their lunch, their 2 or 3 recesses that Ryan talked about, science, social studies, health, we do all those, and then of course the specials. One thing when your child gets into kindergarten, you're going to want to make sure you know what days all those special things are. Make sure they've got their tennis shoes on gym day. Make sure they've got their library book back so that they can get their new library book. You'll want to make sure, especially on art days, and really almost every day in kindergarten, you want to make sure you don't send them to school in something you're going to worry about. If they get it messy or get a stain on it, you're going to want to make sure you send them to school in something that is okay if it gets a little stain on it or gets some marks on it. Lunch, you'll want to make sure you look ahead. And especially if you have a child that is kind of a picky eater, you'll want to make sure that maybe that would be a day that you send a cold lunch. Talk to them about that if they're going to try it, because you want to always make sure that your child is not going to be hungry in the afternoon and then get irritable, tired, whatever. You want to make sure that they are well fed, because they still have a lot of work to do in the afternoon. So we want to make sure they're eating. Snacks, usually there is a snack given in kindergarten. You'll want to check with your classroom teacher and make sure you know how that works. Sometimes teachers will assign an entire week to one student to bring snacks all that week. Sometimes you'll have one day here and there. So just make sure you know what those days are, because they kind of count on those snacks. And then appropriate clothing. Always make sure they've got the appropriate clothing. When it's cool in the morning, make sure they come with that jacket, because even if it's supposed to get warm, it's usually not right away in the morning, and they're chilly at that morning recess and before school. And also, recesses in the winter time, if the wind chill and the temperature is above 0, we're outside. So it's very cold. So you'll want to make sure they've got their snow pants and mittens and all that stuff. So don't want them cold outside, or too cold. Some of the things you can do to prepare for going to kindergarten. I'm going to put this down, excuse me. I'm not looking at it anyway. Some of the things you want to do are make sure you go to kindergarten registration that we talked about, and make sure you attend the open house. The open house is typically when you're going to get to meet and find out for sure who your child's teacher is. At registration, you don't typically find that out. So you'll want to go and make sure that even though you've seen this school, your child knows this is where you're going and this is who your teacher is, and then you can find out all that other important information as well. Especially if they tend to be a little bit emotional, maybe a little bit shy or timid. Make sure that they really get a chance to meet that teacher and let that teacher know that this is kind of how they are, and even though they may not look like it right now, that first day, it might be a little bit a hard time for them. So then that teacher can be aware that might need to have some extra support around to help that separation or whatever happens. Another thing that you might want to check with your teacher at open house is what they would prefer for you to do on that first day. Some schools might want you to come in with your child and help get them settled. Some schools, they might want you to say goodbye on the playground, and that would be something to prepare your child for. If the playground is where we're going to say goodbye, make sure they know that, so that it's not a surprise to them that, oh, I thought you were going with me. So just check on that and make sure you know and your child knows what's going to happen. And that's also a good time to talk about your after-school routine. We want those kids to know who's coming to get them. I have seen so many really scared and crying students because they don't know who's coming and they're not there right now, whoever it is. And they're scared to death after school. So if they can at least know who's coming, then even if you're not there, they can at least tell us, this is who's coming to get me, and we can know who to look for. So, and then of course medications and health concerns, talk to the school nurse and also to the teacher, just so they know up front. Ryan talked a little bit about getting into a routine. It does take a good 2 weeks or so. I remember way back when my kids were going to kindergarten, it's hard in the summertime to start getting those kids to bed. It's light out till 9:30, and it's bright out. It's hard to get them to even think about going to bed. But if you can get those blinds pulled and darken up the room a little bit and start working them to bed a little bit early, a couple weeks ahead, it will pay off in the end. And then also to make sure that they're getting up in the morning, so they're not, sleeping until 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then all of a sudden now we have to get up at 7. That's a big change, and a lot of kids have a hard time making that switch. So really start working on that routine as early as you can. First few days, they will be tired, so they'll probably go to bed really easy after the first few days. They just might not want to wake up. So school supplies, we talked a little bit about that too. The lists usually are in the stores and also on the website, but check with your teacher. Make sure there's nothing special that they request for their classroom. And then another thing, it's kind of a personal request for me, is to just make sure you have a regular size backpack. Some of those backpacks out there are really cute, but they're too small to hold a folder, too small to hold a folder and their shoes in the wintertime and things like that. So really make sure you have a backpack that's going to be able to carry all the things they're going to need to carry in it. So, and also to label those things, just in case they get mixed up. It not only helps the teacher in the beginning, so they don't have to label everything, but it will make sure that your child doesn't lose them in the process of everybody getting their stuff out. So what can you do at home, or what can you do at daycare? Maintain that consistent schedule. Getting to bed, getting up in the morning. Give them opportunities to be responsible for themselves. Have them put things away. Have them clean up and put their things on the shelves or wherever you put their things. Have them get dressed independently and learn how to practice using those buttons and snapping their pants and zipping and all that. Have them complete a little job for you. Ask them to do this and then walk away and and make sure that they have that opportunity to be responsible for getting that done and getting through that. Because in kindergarten, they will be responsible for putting all their things away. Everybody clean up all your things now, and they'll need to do that. So if they've got that practice at home, it will help them in school, and they won't have any problems with that. Read to them every day. Talk to them about it, even if it's not a book. Maybe it's something in the newspaper. It can be anything, as long as they're being read to. Talk with them about it. Ask them questions, like what I talked about earlier. What did you notice about that? Why do you think that happened? Is there anything you're wondering about? What if that was you? What would you do? Those kinds of things, so that they have to really process and think, what would I do? And not just recreate what you already told them, but to think about it. Have them draw a story that Ryan talked about. Draw a story about something that you did together, something they saw. Drawing a story is really the first part of writing, is learning how to draw. And a lot of kids will come and don't want to draw something or don't want to draw a story because they don't know how to draw whatever it is they're drawing. So any time that you can spend with sidewalk chalk or paint, or even in the summertime with water and a brush and just out on the sidewalk or out on the patio, you can have them do pictures and stuff and help them kind of practice drawing a person, or how would we draw a cat? What would we need to do for a cat? And just give them those experiences and being able to use utensils and to do some drawing. Play games. Games where they need to take turns and wait their turn. That is huge. So much of our math curriculum are games, partner games. And they have to wait. They have to have their turn and wait and keep their hands off while their partner has their turn. They have to watch while their partner is doing their part. And that's really hard. But the more practice they can have ahead, the easier that success will be for them. So give them those opportunities to play games. Dice games are great, because a lot of our math curriculum uses the dice and the numbers, or the dots. So they can get to recognize what a four dots look like, what 5 dots look like, and be able to just know that's a 5, that's 4. So those are great things to do. Have them count while you're at the grocery store, while you're picking things up. And encourage them to create. Encourage them to build something with their blocks or with their Legos. Use their imagination. Use their imagination with cutting and coloring and gluing. Let them create something and then tell you about it. Explain it to you. During TV time, I know we all have our TV time, and kids do. They love their TV time for the most part. So use that time that you do give them to watch TV to talk with them about it. Make sure there's interaction going on with you about what's happening on the TV. They can learn a lot from that and take a lot away from that, about friendships, about sharing, about how to treat one another, about different situations and how you handle it. Those would be great opportunities for a lot of those things. And then have conversations with them. When you're driving in the car, turn the radio off. Have a conversation with them. Have them tell you all about something more than just a yes or no answer. Have them tell you all about something and really listen to what they say. And then make sure that they're listening to you when you're talking. That's that give and take and that conversation and that partner talk that we do so much with at school. That's another thing that if they haven't had any practice doing that, that's a really hard thing. So any practice you give them, and besides the fact that they're just getting all your attention, that's a good thing. They always love that. But not only that, but you're helping them to be more successful when it comes time to learning in the classroom and participating in that. Kindergarten is going to be fabulous. So make sure they know that you know that. And make sure that you exude that when you talk to them about kindergarten. I know sometimes people go, oh, I can't believe they're going to kindergarten, but be excited. Be excited. And they will recreate that excitement too, right back at you. They'll do what you do. So be happy, be excited, be ready for them to go, and let them fly. So thank you, parents, for everything that you do. You not only brought them to us, but you are helping to prepare them and doing everything that you can do to help get them ready. And we are excited about that. You are going to see a lot of changes in them within that next year. As a teacher, it's amazing for me to see where they come in the fall and where they leave in the spring, because they have come so far. It is really amazing. And for anybody out there who's a daycare provider, those daycare providers offer that routine, that interaction with lots of other kids and different adults, and give a lot of time and compassion and contributions to all their child's developmental needs too. So we appreciate anybody who is a daycare provider and provides that on the side. So most of all, just cherish your moments leading up to kindergarten. Cherish those kindergarten experiences, all the things they're learning, all the things they're excited about. Just enjoy it. It goes really fast, and it's really to see what happens in 9 months' time in the life of a 5 or 6 year old. So thank you for coming, and really look forward to seeing all of you that will be coming to Terry Redland, and wish you all the very best at whatever school you happen to be going to. Thanks for coming.